trainers began asking me to help in the class itself, maybe watching a certain dog who needed a little reassurance or whatever. I got under the wing of a few of these trainers and they tried showing me how to train dogs. The universal philosophy was pretty much, dog does something good, you give them something good, namely a pat on the head. Dog does something bad, you give them something bad, which meant you pulled on the lead or shouted at them, or even, bizarrely, threw water at them. And yes, some of the trainers and owners would hit the dogs. That's when it got serious for me. I was only 12 or 13 at this point, but I felt very uncomfortable with some of the training that was going on. Back then, the methodology was pretty old school. At best, strict. At worst, very harsh. It was heavy-handed. It was physical. There was widespread use of punishment. That's how it used to be, but I just didn't agree. There was a real emphasis on corrections, on punishing a dog, and a strict focus on how to stop the dog doing something. I would sit there and watch while shuffling uncomfortably in my seat thinking, why don't we just focus on what we do want, rather than only looking for the bad? The more I was seeing and learning, the more I was thinking, this training ain't actually very good. That's the stuff that would keep me awake at night because I couldn't understand or agree with so much of it. Subconsciously, I began to read dogs' body language, which was never even mentioned at any of these classes, and how the dogs exhibited their feelings and what sort of relationship they had with their owners. Behind the very rigid classes, I started seeing the scabby bits, the dog getting a bit stressed but no one noticing, the dog that was scared because of the punishments, the puppy that was struggling for breath every time their owner yanked their lead as discipline, and crucially, I'd noticed the owners were getting stressed too. Looking back, that approach was pretty grotty, but it was across the board. Everyone seemed to do it like that, but they were wrong. I now know that they were wrong. Those early years were a time of great contrast for me. I was troubled by what I was seeing, but also very excited by the idea of training dogs as a job. The problem was, it wasn't a job back then. These dog training classes were run by part-timers on an evening. Back in those days, a lot of the trainers were from a military background or had a career in the services. They weren't being nasty or harsh on purpose, it was just the environment they were in. To be fair, the people that ran dog training clubs were hobbyists, enthusiasts, mostly people doing it out of the kindness of their own hearts, and for some, on that Thursday night they were the king or queen of the village hall. Some were volunteers, some may have covered their expenses, but none of them were full-time, earning a living dog trainers. Perhaps, inevitably, I started doing my own little bits of training. At first, just one-on-one with neighbours' dogs, mostly in the street or garden. Neighbours had maybe seen me in class and noticed how passionate I was, and so it was a natural progression, really. I didn't sit down and figure out my own philosophy or how to train and, more importantly, treat dogs. I just did what I felt was natural. Why would I ever want to hurt my friend? Over time, people started coming to me for advice and asking for my help with a certain problem their dog was having, and that's how it evolved. Over the course of my mid to late teens, it just grew organically. There was no grand career path. I just wanted to be around dogs, and if I was lucky, they wanted to be around me too. As well as no dog, we never had a phone in our house either. I know, I can almost hear you playing your violins for me. So on a Friday night, I used to have to go down a couple of blocks and ring my football manager from the phone box to find out where to meet for the game that weekend. On the way, I'd often see one of the local dogs, a fairly big crossbreed called Yorkie. I always said hi to Yorkie, he was a cracking dog. However, on this one particular night, I saw Yorkie over by a hedge, so I went to say hello to him, and he just stunned me. He flew at me and bit me deeply in several places all over my body, and hurt me really quite badly. Luckily, I got myself into the phone box, back in the day when they had a door on them, thank God, and I was able to wait till he calmed down and went off. I managed to get home and was taken straight to the hospital, so it was a bad incident. Then I found out that Yorkie had been put down. I was devastated. I felt so awful. I couldn't understand why he had gone for me that time when all the hundreds of other meetings we'd had a good play and got on great. As a professional dog trainer, I now know he was doing what is called resource guarding. Namely, he had found a discarded sandwich in a hedge, he perceived me as a threat to that source of food, and his survival instinct told him to protect that meal. Makes perfect sense.